Hey yogis! So we're going to work with one of my favourite poses. It's one of my favourite poses to do, and it's one of my favourite poses to teach. And any of you who've ever been in a class with me, you know that we do this one quite a lot. So it's open heart pose, and we hold it for a long time. I teach this sometimes in a yin class, and I sometimes teach it in a hatha class. So it's one of those ones that kind of bridges the gap between those two styles of yoga. Now for this pose, you do need a couple of things. So I have a bolster and a block. If you don't have a bolster and a block, that's okay. You can get some blankets or towels and roll them up. It doesn't have to be as thick as this one here. And if you don't have a block, you can grab a book or a cushion or anything like that. You just want to make sure it's quite supportive, and you'll see why in a sec. You actually may end up not even using the block, but I always start with it there just to be on the safe side. So I'm going to show you how we get into this. We do it really carefully. We're especially careful with the neck, both when we're coming into the pose and coming out of the pose. So let's do it together. So I'm going to sit down in front of the bolster, and I want to have a bit of a gap in between me and the bolster, so we don't want it all the way down here. It's called open heart pose because we want to open up in the heart space. So if we had it down here and we lay back over it, there'd be more of an opening in the belly. What we want to do is really open a little bit higher up. And then the block is at the back of the mat. Now, once we're in the pose, which is not quite yet, we have three options for the legs. We can have straight legs, we can have bent legs, or we can open the knees out to the side. It's totally up to you which one we do. So I'm going to do the bent leg version today. So I'm going to lie back over the bolster, and there's a little way that you can check that you're in the right place. So when you're almost down there, your forearm, just make sure that it's resting on the floor rather than awkwardly hanging off the bolster. So if it's kind of up here, you need to come out slowly and carefully. Be careful of your neck. Maybe slightly adjust the bolster and then come back down. Again, once more. So both arms come out to the side. Forearms are resting on the floor, and then we carefully tilt the head back. Now, with the block, it has three heights, so using the high one is a great option. You might prefer to use the middle one or the lower one, and I'm going to use the high one today, just makes it easier for me to talk to you. Some people might find that they don't even need the block there. Depending on how high your bolster or whatever you're using is, your head, the back of your head might touch the floor. And other people find that just hanging the head in mid-air feels really good. Now that's not for everyone, it might be a little bit too much in your neck, so you use the support that feels right for you. And then once we're in the pose, remember we have those three options with the legs. We can either have straight legs, that might be a little stronger on the back. We can have bent legs, that might ease that off a little bit. Or we can bring the soles of the feet together and have the knees wide. And that gives us a little bit of an opening in the inner thighs and the groin. So if that's too much, if that's too strong, just give it a miss, bring the knees back up and point them towards the ceiling. Once we're in the pose, we're relaxing and letting go of everything. So remember I said this pose is called open heart pose. The clue's in the question. So we're opening up through the heart space. So the chest, maybe down into the belly, but also extending out into the front of the shoulders. Maybe a bit of an opening through the armpits. How often do you get that? Not very often. Lengthening down the arms. And then also, depending on the position of your head, you might have a nice opening up through the throat. So my head's quite high today, but if my head was further down, I might feel a bit of a lengthening through the throat here, which can be nice as well. So lots of different things to explore there. Remember, as with everything I do in all of my classes, no pain, no pain. We don't want to experience any pain while we're in this pose. So if there's any pinching, especially in the lower back or near the shoulder blades, come really slowly out and make a little adjustment. Maybe you change the position of the bolster, or maybe you don't use a bolster, perhaps you just use a rolled up towel. Sometimes with some people, depending on what's going on with them, I might just have a blanket that's folded over. It might just be that thick. It doesn't have to be a really big thing. It can be a little opening, a little lift for that heart space. And then once we're in, we're really letting go. So why do I love to teach this pose? A couple of reasons. Probably the first one is because it really opens us up in that space, the chest and the belly and the front of the torso, which doesn't really get open that often because we sit a lot, we're often hunched over. We tend to be a little bit compressed in that space, so it's really nice to open up through that space. And it really helps us to get into our breathing. So as you've heard me say before, I'm sure, the breathing is so important, and when we're stressed, when we're hunched over, when we're busy, we're not really breathing to our full lung capacity. And this pose helps us to really open up and create more space for the lungs to expand and contract with each breath. And the more efficiently we can breathe, that means the more carbon dioxide we can get rid of, the more oxygen we can bring in. So we're actually getting rid of stuff that doesn't serve us and bringing in that beautiful vitality. In yoga we call it prana, life force, energy. And then another reason I love teaching this pose is because 99.8% of the time the feedback I get from people is, oh, that pose is just so good. Some people say it feels like a relief to come into a shape like this, to be able to open up through the front of the torso. Everyone tends to feel energized afterwards. Really, unless there's anything going on with your neck or your back, I would say most people find this pose really, really enjoyable to do. Of course, if you're not one of those people, that's okay. And as always, don't force it. You just feel into what's right for you. So we're going to stay here for just another few breaths, feeling into the front of the torso and just noticing how it feels to have that extra space. How does it feel in your spine? Remember, there's no right or wrong. We're just looking into a few different things, a few different sensations, not so that we can judge, just so that we can really start to get to know our own bodies. Just one more breath here. Maybe a big sigh out. Awesome. So we're going to come out really slowly. So let's start with the legs. If you had straight legs in this pose, you're going to bend your knees and bring the soles of the feet to the floor. If your knees were out wide, you're going to bring them in towards the center carefully. And then move the arms. Just rest the upper arms on that bolster. Really careful with the neck. So I'm going to tuck my chin in and come up. And some people like to come up in a straight line. Other people prefer to roll over to the side. And then when we come up, remember we do it really slowly. We're going to move all of these props, your blanket, your book, whatever it is that you've got. And we're just going to come and lie down totally flat. So just noticing how the spine feels now after that really kind of deep opening that we've done. As always, if lying flat doesn't work for you, you can bend your knees and bring the soles of the feet to the floor, or you can rest your legs over the bolster. We're just going to take 3 nice breaths here. Maybe sighing out. Last one. So bring your knees in towards your chest, rolling over to one side and coming to sit up. So this is a great pose, like I said. You can do it at home, you don't need to have the special equipment. You use rolled up towels, a book, whatever you happen to have at hand. Again, there's no limit to how long you can do this pose for. So you can stay in it for 5 or 10 minutes or longer if you like. Just being mindful always when you come out, slowly, really looking after that neck. So I hope you enjoyed that pose. Feel free to come back into it again if you need to. And remember, it's there for you anytime you need it. Thanks very much, guys.